Hi everybody, it's Father Josh with another road trip pilgrimage. Today we're driving down to St. Patrick's Church in Nashua, New Hampshire. Should be a great day for a ride. Let's go check it out. Hey lady! Lady, wanna go for a car ride? You ready? You ready? You wanna go for a car ride? A beautiful morning. Looks like we have 115 miles to go. This is way earlier than we usually leave in the morning. We're gonna need to make a couple of coffee stops, I think. Here we are at St. Patrick's Church in Nashua, New Hampshire. I'm here with Father Michael Kerper. Father, thank you so much for welcoming us.
Okay, nice to have you.
Come on in, let's check it out.
So this is St. Patrick's Church, and it opened with its first Mass on Christmas Eve, I believe, in 1909. It took 10 years to build it, and if you look around at the size and the elegance, you can understand why it took 10 years. The priest who was the pastor at the time, his name was Father Buckle, and he came here from Nova Scotia. And the tragedy of Father Buckle is he was the one who built the church and never said Mass in it. He died, I think, in the summer of 1909, and he was succeeded by Father Kramer, who was the longest serving pastor here. He was here for 32 years. And the great thing about Father Kramer, he was known as being very tough. He was very prominent in the area, but he made the point of putting on Father Buckle's headstone that he was the one who built the church. Because Father Kramer just walked in and he never took the credit. Others might do something else, but he was a very humble, tough guy.
Yeah.
The sanctuary, as you see it now, is basically the way it was. This altar was put in sometime in the 1960s. The pulpit here was also done at that time. And when people complain about not being able to hear in here, I always say you have to remember, when this opened, there was no such thing as a public address system. There were no electronics. And the sound system was the dome. The dome over the sanctuary generates a kind of natural amplification. And the pulpit was actually over in this part of the church, and it was elevated. And there were probably 15 or 20 steps to get up there, and it was on a track, and it would be pulled out into the center of the church, and then the sermon would be given in that way. But everything here, the statues, the tabernacle, which we just had replated, all of this is original. The stained glass windows are very interesting in that they were put in sometime after the church opened because the cost was so exhaustive that it was decided to wait for the windows. So during Father Kramer's time, the windows were put in, and there's 14 windows. They're the mysteries of the Rosary. But of course, there's 15 mysteries of the Rosary, so there's one missing. And I was trying to figure out, how did we miss one? And the one that was missing wasn't a window, but on the dome here, there was a kind of fresco of the descent of the Holy Spirit. and it faded and was never replaced. So I said the Holy Spirit here is totally invisible, as the Spirit is. So it's actually providential that they didn't do that.
Yeah.
The windows up here are the Evangelist and the Sacred Heart, and the big window of St. Patrick. They were here at the very beginning of the using of the church.
One of the things that's been interesting as we go around to all these different churches, you see some things that are the same idea, but carried out in a different way. So to point out the four evangelists up above the altar, that's something you see in so many different churches, but sometimes it's statues, sometimes it's plaques, sometimes it's very simple things. These are really amazing stained glass windows that are tucked away. Some of them are so hard to see from most of the church.
And one little interesting point is on the extreme right here, there's the window of St. Matthew. And guess what the name of the pastor was at the time? Was Matthew Kramer. So it says gift of Father Matthew Kramer, so he made sure he got his name in.
So, Father, if you had to pick a certain statue or stained glass window or some other artistic element in the church, what's something that really kind of speaks to you?
The one that I like the most, the first time I saw this, I said, who's that girl?
Oh, okay. All right, that's a hint. Okay, so it's a painting. It's got to be a saint holding lilies next to a horse with the gifts of the wise men, the gifts of the magi next to it. I have no idea who that could be.
It's Saint Casimir.
Oh.
And this particular painting was commissioned by Father Kelly, Martin Kelly, who was my predecessor. And the reason it was commissioned was St. Casimir's parish and St. Patrick's had merged. Mm-hmm. And so there was a desire to have something pertaining to St. Casimir. And this was done by an artist who lives in central New Hampshire, I believe, named Aponovich, who is very well known. And what I liked about it was it's the only true representation of St. Casimir. St. Casimir is usually shown wearing a crown and sometimes being seated in a throne. But this painting tells you the true St. Casimir. He's off the horse because there was the famous episode when his father was the king of Poland, wanted to acquire more territory. And Casimir, and I think he was only maybe 14 or 15, was put in charge of the military expedition. He got there, he discerned it was not a just war, and he left. And so he's shown as leaving the military horse.
And holding the lilies of
Yes,
peace.
the lilies are actually a symbol of the fact that as a young man, much to the consternation of his father, he took a perpetual vow of chastity. And would not marry, which really messed up the dynastic succession in Poland. So the flowers are a symbol of the purity. And also, you'll notice he has bare feet. He lived very austerely. And the gifts, the objects on the left, symbolize his renunciation of aristocratic standing and the putting away of the money, the coins and everything, because he was known as a defender of the poor. And he died very young. He was made the viceroy of his father in Lithuania. And there was always a lot of conflict between Lithuania and Poland. And he was very much received by the people in Lithuania. And he died in Lithuania. I think his body is someplace in Lithuania. But I like that picture, that painting, because it's the total reverse of the normal depictions of him.
Yeah. Well, I was way off.
Well, the gift of magi, that's understandable. statue up here of the Blessed Mother goes back to 1939. There were two made in the United States. It was the time of the World's Fair. There's one other one exactly like this, but we don't know where it is. This, for many years, was in St. Casimir's on Temple Street, and when the church merged with us, it came up here, and it was kind of abandoned. It had a lot of damage on it. And a woman in the parish named Pat Riley said she could fix it because we had estimates. It was really extremely expensive. She did it on her own. And
She did a beautiful job.
yeah. It has great beauty to it. And it's also a memento of the people of St. Casimir. The Immaculate Conception. That was the original name of the parish, was Immaculate Conception. It's a copy of the Murillo painting. And it became St. Patrick's unilaterally when Father Kramer opened the church. Suddenly it became St. Patrick's. And then the title Immaculate Conception went on the back burner. And then when the current Immaculate Conception was created, the reason I think for that was to restore the title Immaculate Conception to one of the parishes in Nashua.
This is, I think, the first handicapped accessible design confessional I think I've ever seen.
Oh, well, we put this in about 6 or 7 years ago. And the reason we did it was we recognized that people could not get into the ordinary confessional because many people were in wheelchairs or just had mobility issues. And so we did this specifically so we could accommodate handicaps.
I
love
that this is here.
There's a seat there that falls down so people can come in and sit and then make their confession. And so you can push the nailer up.
Even it's
this was
such
all
a great
very
idea.
Carefully thought out, not by me. There's so many other people. And then this is my little place. There's a little library there. And one of the things that St. Patrick's was known for was having daily confessions going back many, many years. When there used to be 2 daily masses, there was confession before both. There was a 7, I think, and then the 12:05. And we've had to curtail the schedule a bit, but we have confessions every day except Monday. And the remarkable thing is that people come here from all over because it's known that you're going to always find somebody here to hear confessions. And they come from as far away as Lowell and other parts of Massachusetts. And during the pandemic, I would meet people who came here all the way from Connecticut saying that they could not find confessions anywhere. And I said, well, Google it. I'm sure there's other places.
So this has been a site of pilgrimage, especially.
And they're just kind of ordinary people. There's some who are regulars, but then there's a lot of drop-ins.
Yeah.
There's also an interesting thing here. This plaque was put in memory of a young priest named Daniel Sullivan who died during, I think, the flu epidemic.
Oh, yeah.
And so it says he died in Nashua, October 8th, 1918, a martyr to duty. And I think he was a priest maybe only for 5 or 6 years. And he was from Laconia. And that's been there for a long time.
So, Father, if somebody was coming to visit this church for the first time, what's something you would really want them to notice or to see?
When people come and they talk to me about coming here, the thing that seems most common is the size of the church and the more or less pristine condition. And I think when people come into inner city churches, many times they're waiting to find some kind of decay or some
Expecting
kind of mess.
disrepair.
And
yeah.
they come in and everything looks as it did when the church opened in 1909. Another thing that people like, which is somewhat unusual, is that it's a very quiet place. People always say, well, I'm glad somebody doesn't talk in church. Yeah. And so people, when they come in, and a good number come ahead of Mass, our customers, we have no rehearsals, no music going on at that time. And so people do come in to pray, and then they also sometimes will stay for some time afterwards. But it's always been known as the kind of quiet
And
parish.
there's a real power in that, to have this like oasis of silence with a busy city all around, to have a place where you could just come and go and be able to focus on prayer.
And we would like to be able to leave it open, but it's simply impossible.
The high altar below the tabernacle has the image of the Last Supper on it.
Right.
What does that say to you? What does that
Well,
speak to
we're
you?
hoping to get that redone, because what I like about that is when you look at it, the apostles are all talking to one another and ignoring Jesus. And so I think it's kind of a metaphor for life today.
How distracted are we when we come?
Yeah. But he's there for them, and they're not really plugged in, but he doesn't leave. So I think it's a great sign that the way things are today are not necessarily all that different from the way they were at the Last Supper. They're all arguing about something.
One of the really striking things I notice on this altar is the angel that's right above the tabernacle.
Yeah, the angel has a story. When
Everything here has a story.
there was the decision made to bring that crucifix from St. Casimir and give it the place of prominence. The painting, the Murillo painting, the copy of it, used to be there. And where the angel is now, there was a crucifix that matches the candlesticks. And so the crucifix had to be removed, because you cannot, according to the norms, have two crucifixes close together. And so there was the empty space. I guess Father Kelly, my predecessor, decided to get the angel. So the angel was put right over the tabernacle. So the idea was it was symbolic of the adoration of the Eucharist from the top. Instead of the angel looking at the tabernacle, the angel's looking down. But that was just kind of a quick decision, I think.
But it does speak to, the choirs of angels, the angels always surrounding and adoring the Eucharist of the Lord. So here we are at the Day Cafe. Father, can you explain what this space is all about?
Yeah, this began about 2 years ago. We opened the parish center, the section down here and the front on Main Street, and we have bathrooms here. And the purpose of it is so that people who are on the street can come together and just sit down. So as we came in, we saw people playing cards. And the only thing we do, it's a very simple project. We give out coffee and we give out snacks. And all of that stuff comes from people of various parishes, not only Catholic parishes, but the Methodist Church and others as well. And we preferred to receive the materials rather than money. And so we kind of have a cashless arrangement here.
Well, that's a great thing to be able to offer people, just a nice place to sit and have a cup of coffee and not have to worry about things.
In the winter, there's many more people. Sure. And on really hot days, but we don't have air conditioning. So this is the parish center, and you can see all these boxes and tables. And what's happening right now, this whole building was renovated in the last several months. It was a big job. And what's happening right now is we have people who are assembling the furniture, and this will be used by the parish. But everything we have now, we share it with other entities, because there's many service groups, nonprofits around here who don't have meeting space. And so in planning the whole renovation here, we did it with the understanding it would be multi-purpose.
As I've mentioned before, I love coming up into choir lofts. This is probably the tallest choir loft I've ever seen in a church. And it really highlights everything that Father Kerper was telling us, like how pristine, how beautiful, how much work, how intentional they are here about making a beautiful space for people to come and pray and to worship. I love when a church has stained glass windows that are dedicated to the mysteries of the Rosary. So here, as Father Kerper said, almost every station of the Rosary, every decade of the Rosary is represented, every mystery. This one in particular, it shows the agony in the garden, has this really incredible depiction of St. Peter waking up or falling asleep. He's got the sword next to him. You can even see the crowd in the background starting to come to begin the arrest of Jesus. Another thing you notice in this church is not only is it huge, but everything, the way it's designed, makes it feel even bigger. There's this, the way the columns are going, the height of the ceiling, all of this adds to this really grand space. It's this sense of this is a house where God can dwell. Talking with Father Kerper, one of the things he talked about was how when this church was built, you had 5,000 families that would live here and came to this church. This church is such a fixture, a permanent structure, and yet the community changes and the town changes and cities change. And it's interesting to talk to him about how this community is adapting to that as well. You know, he talked about the day cafe where you're reaching out to members of the community. They're building this transitional housing. They have the gymnasium being used by the police league. Like all of these things being used to keep the community going and involved and connected to the church.
Well, what a great trip, what a great pilgrimage that was to St. Patrick's in Nashua. You know, what an incredibly beautiful, quiet, prayerful, holy space in the midst of all the hustle and bustle of Nashua. What a great place to be able to go and to pray, to visit the Lord, to go to reconciliation. As Father Kerper said, they have confessions there almost every day. People travel from all around already to go and have their confessions heard there. And what a beautiful church is, not only as a place of worship, but also inviting the community in and offering things to people in need in the community. A beautiful representation of all that the church does for people and for people in need. So I hope you enjoyed traveling with us on this road trip pilgrimage. If you like these videos, please comment, like the video, subscribe to the channel. It really helps us out a lot. Yeah, wherever your travels take you, why not make it a pilgrimage? God bless everybody.
Is it going?
Yeah, sorry, we cannot see.
There's no red light on this one. Oh, there goes the bells. We gotta hurry. Let's go. It's like the old and then the new with the PVC coming through.
Old Lego.